I hit my first 5-figure month with about 300 followers. Most solopreneurs think they need a bigger audience when what they actually need are the right relationships. In this video, I'll break down the 3-part framework that helped me build a 6-figure business without a big audience and how you can use it to create more predictable sales opportunities. When I left my startup COO role, it felt like I was starting from scratch again. I'd already started multiple businesses. I had done consulting work. I coached brain surgeons and sales directors. I even worked closely with founders and CEOs. So on paper, I had plenty of experience. But when you step out on your own, it's always the same question. Where is the next opportunity coming from? And if you spend any amount of time online as a solopreneur, you'll hear the same answers over and over again. Build an audience, post more, post consistently, grow your reach, set up funnels, run paid ads. And I'm not saying that those things never matter, but when I looked at how I had actually created opportunities in my own life, it literally never came from going viral. It came from relationships. That's how I got into academic programs. That's how I got fellowships. That's how I got jobs and clients, contract opportunities and introductions. And it's also how I built my business. So the first shift I had to make was even thinking that you need a bigger audience when all you really need is better relationships. And I can give you 3 reasons why making that shift matters. Number 1, you can be posting consistently and still feel invisible in all the ways that actually matter. Posting alone doesn't guarantee that you'll even build an audience. Number 2, you can spend months creating content and building an audience without creating any predictable sales opportunities. And without sales, you don't have a business. So if that's not important, I don't know what is. But number 3, being seen by a lot of strangers is not the same as being known by the right people. And for coaches and consultants and facilitators, really anyone building an expertise or service-based business, that distinction matters a lot. An audience can amplify your work, but relationships are the engine. A small network of the right people can create introductions, collaborations, referrals, and clients. Meanwhile, a large audience can still leave you guessing where your next opportunity is coming from. So once I realized that relationships were the real growth engine, the next question that you might have now too is, okay, how do you actually build them intentionally? That's where the framework comes in. It's called the authentic outreach framework, and it has 3 phases. There's also one very important layer that makes all 3 phases work better, but I'll get to that in a minute. So let's start with phase 1. Intro. A lot of solopreneurs struggle with relationship building because they're used to environments where relationships happen by default. School did it for you, jobs did it for you, even past clients or teams may have done it for you. But once you're on your own, you have to create those conversations intentionally. That's what the intro phase is all about. You're not pitching. You're not sending the same message 1,000 times. You're not trying to prove your value in the first 30 seconds. You're literally just starting the relationship in a personalized, human, relevant way. And that might be a DM, an email, a warm intro, a comment that turns into a conversation, or a follow-up text after you met someone. The format matters a lot less than the energy. You're not trying to convert here. You're trying to connect. Like, that's the vibe. And that matters because how you start the relationship shapes what kind of relationship it can become. If you open with a pitch, people feel that. And it's not that it never works, but again, it's a very narrow road that will usually dead end. But if you open like a real person who is thoughtful and curious and clear, then the conversation has room to go somewhere. And all you're trying to do here is start a conversation, which brings us to phase 2. And this is where most people go wrong. They start the conversation and then immediately feel pressure to sound smart or be impressive, steer towards business, or prove they have value. And that usually kills the relationship before it has a chance to become anything meaningful. It's like ripping the plant up from the roots before it bears fruit. So here's a much better approach. Don't go into conversations trying to be interesting. Go in trying to be interested. What are they building? What are they excited about? What feels hard right now? What are they trying to solve? What kinds of opportunities are they exploring? Or what do they need that they might not have already figured out? That's the kind of curiosity that really does 2 things for you. Like, first, it gives you the real information, but then second, it builds trust because people can tell when you're just trying to get something from them, and they can also tell when you genuinely care to understand them. And trust is what makes future opportunities possible. Remember, I said future. These aren't magic tricks. These are just lessons I've learned over the last 15 years. This is the part that a lot of people skip because they want to get to that opportunity too fast. But this is the part that makes the opportunities possible in the first place. So don't let a scarcity mindset kill the vibe. If you kill the vibe, you kill the opportunity. Don't do it. Now, before I get to the third phase, I told you there was something really important that makes all three phases work better. Because it's not just about building relationships, it's also building the right relationships. And not every conversation is equally valuable. Not every relationship has the same relevance, and not every person you talk to is someone you need to invest in at the same level. This is, I can't express how important this part is. It's honestly where so many solopreneurs get stuck because they either go too broad, talking to too many people, and waste time on conversations that go nowhere, or they're too narrow in what they're looking for that they miss great opportunities that could have turned into referrals, partnerships, or clients. So you need clarity around who actually matters in your ecosystem. Who are the people you want to be known by? Who serves the same audience? Who has adjacent problems, adjacent networks, or natural overlap with what you do? That alone is a huge point of leverage. And if you want a deeper dive on this, stick around to the end of the video because I'll point you to another episode on how to find the right people. And I'll also tell you how you can get our Niche Navigator worksheet that helps you with all of this stuff. The third phase of the authentic outreach framework is invite. And this is where relationships turn into opportunities. Now, this is where people usually make one of two mistakes. They either force it too early or they never move the relationship forward at all. Both are problems because if you force it too early, the relationship can feel transactional. If you never move it forward at all, it's kind of like getting friend zoned. This part comes down to knowing when there is a real entry point. An entry point is a concept from counseling psychology, and in this context, it's the moment when someone shares something that overlaps naturally with something you can help with. It can be a goal, a frustration, transition, bottleneck, an idea they're trying to figure out, a gap they haven't solved yet. Like, it can honestly be as simple as even like a common interest, because when the overlap is real and genuine, you don't need to force a pitch. You just need to invite them at the right time to the appropriate next step. There are unlimited ways to do this, but ultimately you just don't want to sound rehearsed. It's kind of like the difference between waiting to speak and actually listening. And the better you understand the person, the easier it is to recognize when that entry point is actually there. So let me just show you a few real examples to hopefully take some of the mystery out of all this for you. Here's an example of phase one. If you're watching, not just listening, and you want to pause and read, go ahead. But what you'll see here is this first message I sent, and it's highly personalized. It's not a cookie cutter template. Again, I'm not saying there's no place for those, but as you can see from her response, it was a pretty good conversation starter. And this particular person eventually turned into a partner for us. Now, the interest phase can go lots of directions, which is why we break this part of the framework down even further for our clients. But the first example is just to show what that can actually look like in real life. Now, for this one, I send voice notes. So obviously you can't read the text, but again, very personal, not something AI is going to replicate so easily. And this person also became a partner. But to show you some text, here's another example, and here's another example. These are all on LinkedIn, by the way, but they could be on any channel. And out of context, reading some of these examples might not make a ton of sense, but that's because they're very conversational. Like, that should be clear. And just like when you overhear part of a conversation, it doesn't always sound like much. But that's what the second phase is all about. You're extending the conversation until you find an entry point. That's when you can make an invite to whatever the appropriate next step is. Again, the process isn't complicated here. But people are complicated. So the principles are always the same. It's the putting it into practice where there's a lot of nuance. So hopefully from these examples, you can see what I mean here. I'm not manufacturing demand. I'm just paying attention to what the person is sharing, noticing where there's relevant overlap, and then making an invitation that actually fits the context of the conversation. That's how relationships turn into opportunities. If you take nothing else from this video, remember this. For most solopreneurs, growth does not come from being known by everyone. It comes from being known by the right people. You don't need a massive audience to build a successful business. You just need the right conversations with the right people and a way to turn those conversations into trust and opportunities. That's why this framework is timeless. Just start the conversation, build trust through genuine curiosity, and try to recognize the entry points so you can progress naturally. That's how relationships create introductions, collaborations, referrals, and clients. As promised, if you want the deeper dive on how to find the right people, click this video somewhere over here. And if you want the Niche Navigator worksheet I mentioned earlier, then check out the link below to join our network and sell community where we have even more frameworks and resources on these kinds of topics. See you next time.